Imagine driving alone on a dark American backroad. The clock in your car freezes at 12:13. The radio only plays static, and suddenly, you see a forgotten town that doesn't exist on any map. Would you stop? Or would you keep driving? Because what Emily saw that night inside a deserted diner in Pennsylvania is something you'll never forget. And trust me, once you hear the whispers calling your name, you'll realize, this is a story you should never watch alone. But before we dive deeper into this chilling tale, tell me in the comments, would you dare stop in that diner? And if you want to experience more stories that will freeze your blood and keep you awake at night, don't forget to hit subscribe, so you never miss the next nightmare. The night was darker than usual, the kind of darkness that feels alive, heavy, pressing against the windows of every house on the lonely street. A young woman named Emily drove her old Ford down a winding back road in rural Pennsylvania, headlights cutting through the thick mist that hung low over the asphalt. She kept glancing at the clock on her dashboard, its green glow stuck at 12:13, no matter how many times she hit the dash to make it flicker back to life. Her grandmother had warned her never to take this road past midnight, but Emily had laughed it off, telling herself those were just old American ghost stories passed down to scare children. But the silence inside her car was suffocating. Not even the hum of the radio would play, only static, hissing, rising and falling like a breath. Out of the fog, an old wooden sign appeared, crooked and nearly swallowed by vines, its white paint peeling, "Welcome to Cold Hollow." Emily felt a shiver crawl across her arms as she slowed the car. The town wasn't on her GPS, wasn't even supposed to exist anymore. Yet there it was, dim streetlights buzzing weakly over empty houses with broken porches, American flags hanging tattered on poles that hadn't seen wind in years. She parked in front of a diner, the kind you'd see in black and white photographs, chrome edges dull, its neon sign sputtering with a faint glow that read open even though no one was inside. The door creaked when she pushed it, the bell above jangling once before falling silent, and the smell of stale coffee mixed with something metallic lingered in the air. Every booth looked like people had just gotten up and walked away, half-drunk mugs, plates with cold fries, napkins still crumpled on the table. On the counter sat a jukebox, dusty but humming softly, like it was waiting. Without touching it, a song began to play, an old Elvis tune, scratchy, distorted, but clear enough for her to hear the words, and her chest tightened as she realized the voice wasn't Elvis at all. It was whispering her name. Emily. Her hands shook as she backed toward the door, but the bell above never rang this time, no sound at all, only the scraping of something heavy moving in the kitchen. The jukebox clicked, skipping, repeating her name over and over, each time louder, until the lights above began to flicker and the window blinds rattled as if something outside was pounding to get in. Emily's breath came fast, her heart racing, and then she saw it in the reflection of the diner's glass. A figure standing right behind her. Tall. Motionless. Its outline blurred in the flickering light, like smoke trying to take the shape of a man. Emily froze, her reflection showing her eyes wide with terror, but the figure behind her had no face, just a hollow void, darker than the night outside. Her body refused to move, her legs numb, but her breath fogged the glass in front of her as if the room had turned ice cold. The jukebox cut off suddenly, leaving a silence so deep it rang in her ears. Then, the voice came again. Not from the jukebox this time. From the figure itself. Why did you come back here? Emily's throat tightened. She hadn't been here before, she was sure of it. Cold Hollow wasn't on any map. It wasn't supposed to exist. But the figure stepped closer, its shadow spilling across the tiled floor like ink spreading in water, reaching for her shoes, curling around her ankles. Emily stumbled back, her hand finding the counter, knocking over a coffee mug that shattered against the floor. The sound was sharp, but the figure didn't flinch. Instead, every booth in the diner groaned at once, chairs dragging back as if invisible people were standing up, all at the same time. She turned her head slowly, heart pounding against her ribs. Shapes were sitting in those booths now. Dozens of them. Men in flannel shirts, women in faded dresses, children with wide, hollow eyes. Their skin was gray, sunken, their faces twisted as though frozen mid-scream. One by one, they turned their heads toward her in perfect unison. and every single one of them whispered her name. Emily. Her knees buckled, and she clutched the counter to keep from falling. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. The figure behind her moved closer, its breath cold against her ear. You shouldn't have left the road. And then, the diner door slammed shut on its own. The slam echoed through the empty town, rattling the glass panes until a long crack split across the window in front of her. Emily spun toward the door, her chest heaving, but the handle twisted uselessly in her hands, locked tight though she'd never turned a key. Behind her, the booths groaned again. The gray figures were standing now, each one slowly rising, their hollow eyes fixed on her, their mouths opening wider than human jaws should ever open. The air filled with a low, vibrating hum, like 1,000 voices trying to speak at once but choking on the words. Her palms burned against the metal handle, too hot to touch now, as if the door itself didn't want her to leave. Then she heard it, footsteps. Not the echo of her own, but heavy, deliberate steps coming from the kitchen. Something big. Something alive. She turned toward the swinging doors just as they creaked open on their own, revealing nothing but darkness inside. The smell hit her first, thick and sour, like rotting meat mixed with burnt oil. Her vision blurred for a moment, the edges of the room warping like heat waves. And when it cleared, every booth was empty again. No gray figures. No hollow eyes. Just plates, cups, and silence. Emily's breath caught in her throat, her pulse hammering in her ears. Then the jukebox clicked back on. A different song now. Slow. A gospel hymn, but twisted, played backward, words impossible to understand. She backed away, her shoulder pressing against the glass, when she saw it again, her reflection. But this time, her reflection wasn't copying her. It was smiling. The smile on the glass stretched wider than Emily's face could ever move, a grin sharp and wrong, teeth too many, too bright in the dim diner light. Her chest tightened, panic clawing up her throat, and she slapped a hand against the window as if trying to smudge the reflection away. But the girl in the glass pressed her palm back, perfectly aligned, skin pale and cracked like porcelain. Emily jerked her hand away, but the reflection didn't. It kept pressing, harder, until fine fractures splintered across the glass as though it was trying to push through. Her reflection tilted its head, smile splitting wider, and whispered without moving its lips. Stay. The jukebox grew louder, the backward hymn warping, distorting, until it was just a deafening roar filling the room. Plates rattled on the counters, silverware clinked and fell, the diner itself seemed to shake. Emily stumbled toward the booths, desperate for another exit, any way out, when the kitchen door swung wide again. This time, something stepped through. Tall, hunched, its skin the color of ash, its eyes burning faint red like dying coals. It moved with a slow, dragging gait, one arm impossibly long, fingertips scraping the floor with a sound that cut through her bones. She froze, heart hammering, and the thing's head turned toward her with a snap, like a broken puppet on strings. And then, from the shadows behind it, dozens of smaller shapes began to crawl out, hands slapping against the tiles, eyes glinting in the dark. Emily backed into the corner, nowhere left to run, when the reflection in the cracked glass began to pound harder, harder, the fractures spreading like a spiderweb. With one final hit, the glass shattered inward. Shards exploded across the floor, glittering in the flickering diner lights. Emily shielded her face with her arms, but when she looked up, her stomach dropped. Her reflection had stepped out of the broken glass. It stood there barefoot, bleeding from cuts it didn't seem to feel, head tilted, that same grotesque smile carved deep into its face. Its eyes were darker than night, bottomless pits that pulled at her insides the longer she stared. The crawling things from the kitchen froze, almost as if they were waiting, bowing their heads to her reflection like it was their master. Emily's chest heaved. "What are you?" she whispered, her voice breaking. The reflection blinked once, slowly, then spoke in her voice, perfectly, but wrong, every word dragging like static through a broken speaker. "I'm you. I've always been here." Emily shook her head violently, backing away until her spine pressed hard into the counter. Her legs threatened to give out, but she forced herself upright, fingers scrambling against the cool metal as though it could anchor her. Her reflection stepped closer, glass crunching under its feet with every slow, deliberate move. The red-eyed figure behind it let out a low, guttural hiss, and the smaller shadows echoed it in unison, the sound filling the diner like an animal chorus. Emily's reflection raised its hand, pressing a finger to its lips, a mocking shush. The diner lights flickered once. Twice. And then went out. In the suffocating black, Emily could hear them moving, shuffling, crawling, breathing. Closer. Closer. And just when she felt the icy brush of fingers against her wrist, the jukebox lit up again, casting a dim red glow across the room. Only now, the song playing wasn't backward. It was a recording of Emily's own voice. Screaming. The sound of her own scream tore through the diner, raw and agonized, echoing from the jukebox as though it had been stolen straight from her lungs. Emily's hands flew to her mouth, but she hadn't made a sound. The recording continued anyway, looping, twisting, distorting, until it became something inhuman. Her reflection stepped into the red glow, its face twitching as if trying to hold the smile too wide, cracks forming at the corners of its lips like porcelain breaking under pressure. The crawling figures circled closer, their limbs scraping against the tiles, their eyes flickering faintly with the glow of the jukebox. Emily stumbled sideways along the counter, fingers fumbling for anything she could use as a weapon. Her hand landed on a steak knife left behind on a dirty plate. She gripped it tight, the handle slick with old grease, her knuckles white. "Stay away from me," she whispered, voice trembling, but it only made the reflection laugh, her laugh, but hollow, stretched, broken. The sound rattled the walls, made the overhead lights buzz and spit sparks even though the power was long gone. Her reflection tilted its head again, leaned in close enough for Emily to smell the cold metallic scent dripping from its skin, and whispered, "You never left Cold Hollow." Emily's stomach lurched. What do you mean?" Before she could breathe again, the jukebox snapped to silence. The crawling things froze. The red-eyed figure at the back straightened, taller now, its head brushing the ceiling. And then, every single voice in the diner, her reflection, the gray figures that weren't there anymore, the shadows, even the jukebox itself, spoke at once. "Look outside." Emily's body moved against her will, legs carrying her toward the cracked diner window. Her heart pounded as she peered through the shattered glass into the street. And she saw rows of people standing in the mist. Dozens. Hundreds. All of them staring straight at her. Every face was her own. Emily staggered back from the window, her chest heaving, her mind refusing to accept what her eyes showed her. Hundreds of Emilys, lining the street, standing in the fog like mannequins. Each one dressed differently, some in clothes from decades past, some in uniforms, some in outfits she had never worn. All of them had her face. The diner walls pulsed with a low, steady thrum, as if the entire building were alive, beating in rhythm with her racing heart. Her reflection stepped closer, the glass crunching louder beneath its bare feet. "Do you understand now?" it whispered, voice calm, deliberate, terrifying in its certainty. Emily shook her head, tears brimming, knife trembling in her hand. "This isn't real. This isn't. Every choice you didn't make. Every road you didn't take. Every life you left behind," the reflection cut in, its voice tightening like a noose. "They're all here. Waiting." The figures outside pressed closer to the glass, faces expressionless, eyes wide and unblinking. In unison, they raised their hands, palms flat against the diner windows, fogging the glass with each synchronized breath. Emily's legs buckled, and she fell to her knees, the knife clattering to the floor. She pressed her hands against her ears, trying to drown out the sound of her own name, whispered now by hundreds of voices, layered, overlapping, vibrating through the very air. Her reflection crouched in front of her, tilting its head with mock sympathy. It reached out, gently tucking a loose strand of hair behind Emily's ear, the way she used to do in the mirror every morning. Then it leaned closer, its lips brushing her ear. "You were never driving home, Emily. You've been here all along." The lights above flared once, blinding white, then burst into darkness. And in that final silence, the only sound that remained was Emily's own scream, echoing, endless, as if it would never stop.